I don't mean to be disrespectful, but these are peculiar names for children.
I don't think so.
Frank Zappa stands as one of rock music's most innovative and boundary-pushing figures. His experimental approach to composition and fearless creativity transformed what people thought was possible within the genre. Throughout his career, he challenged musical conventions and expanded rock's boundaries by incorporating influences from classical music and jazz. In a fascinating interview, Zappa revealed his 10 favorite musicians of all time, offering insight into the deep classical and avant-garde foundations that shaped his groundbreaking work. While some of his choices were predictable, others showed just how sophisticated his understanding of music history was across multiple genres. These selections revealed his genuine respect for the composers and musicians who influenced his artistic vision and demonstrated that even a rule breaker like Zappa had studied music history extensively. His rankings celebrated the experimentalists and pioneers who proved that music could be both intellectually challenging and emotionally powerful at the same time. The list spans from classical pioneers to blues innovators, revealing the diverse musical foundations behind Zappa's revolutionary approach. Each musician on this countdown contributed something essential to how Zappa understood composition, performance, and sonic exploration. His #1 pick perfectly captures the experimental spirit that drove his entire career and shows the depth of gratitude he felt toward those who came before him. Jimi Hendrix earned a place on Zappa's list for revolutionizing the electric guitar and expanding what the instrument could do beyond anyone's imagination. His innovative use of feedback, distortion, and various effects opened up entirely new territories for rock music. Zappa recognized Hendrix as a true innovator who transformed the guitar into an orchestra of sounds rather than just an instrument for playing notes. Hendrix showed that the electric guitar could be a tool for composition and sonic exploration, pushing the boundaries of what musicians thought was possible. His performances demonstrated that playing guitar could be both visual art and musical experimentation happening at the same time. Albums like Electric Ladyland showcased sophisticated studio techniques and arrangement ideas that were ahead of their time. Zappa appreciated how Hendrix pushed recording technology to create sounds that nobody had heard before, treating the studio itself as an instrument. This approach to studio work as part of the creative process influenced Zappa's own production methods significantly. What made Hendrix special in Zappa's eyes was his combination of blues feeling with experimental fearlessness. He respected musical tradition while completely reimagining what was possible on electric guitar. Zappa learned from Hendrix that breaking rules effectively required first understanding them thoroughly. The inclusion of Hendrix on this list shows Zappa's respect for his revolutionary contribution to expanding the guitar's sonic vocabulary and compositional possibilities. Captain Beefheart, born Don Van Vliet, held a special place on the list as Zappa's childhood friend and artistic collaborator for decades. Together, they created groundbreaking experimental music that challenged every rock convention imaginable. Beefheart's completely original approach to rhythm, melody, and song structure showed Zappa that rock music could be genuine avant-garde art. Their collaborations produced some of the most innovative music in rock history, music that still sounds strange and fresh today. Beefheart's album Trout Mask Replica, which Zappa produced, remains one of rock's most daring experimental works. His approach to composition was utterly unique, combining elements of blues, free jazz, and surrealist poetry into something entirely his own. Zappa deeply admired Beefheart's fearless commitment to his artistic vision, regardless of commercial concerns or mainstream acceptance. Beefheart proved that rock music could be as experimental and challenging as any contemporary classical composition. What made him essential in Zappa's view was his complete originality and refusal to compromise his vision for anyone. His rhythmic concepts and vocal approach influenced experimental music across all genres. Zappa valued Beefheart's dedication to creating genuinely new music rather than simply recycling familiar ideas. The ranking honors decades of friendship and mutual artistic inspiration between two revolutionary musical minds who understood each other's creative impulses. Pierre Boulez was a renowned French conductor and composer of contemporary classical music who represented the highest level of musical sophistication and compositional mastery. Zappa deeply admired Boulez's command of modern composition and his dedication to performing contemporary works that other conductors might ignore. Boulez showed that classical music could be as challenging and revolutionary as any rock experimentation. In the 1980s, Boulez conducted Zappa's orchestral works, bringing legitimacy and serious attention to Zappa's classical compositions. His interpretations helped audiences understand Zappa's complex rhythmic and harmonic ideas that might have seemed impenetrable without such skilled interpretation. Zappa appreciated Boulez's willingness to champion contemporary composers and expand the classical repertoire beyond the standard works that most orchestras played. Boulez proved that serious music and experimental approaches could coexist in prestigious concert halls without diluting either the artistry or the innovation. What made Boulez important in Zappa's eyes was his combination of compositional brilliance and conducting mastery. He understood both creating and interpreting complex modern music at the highest level. Zappa learned from Boulez that discipline and structure were essential to making experimental music coherent rather than simply chaotic. The ranking shows Zappa's deep respect for classical mastery and his aspiration to create music worthy of serious artistic consideration alongside the classical repertoire. Karl-Heinz Stockhausen pioneered electronic music and avant-garde composition in the 1950s and 1960s, opening up entirely new musical possibilities. His experimental techniques with tape manipulation and electronic instruments showed composers that technology could expand their creative palette dramatically. Zappa studied Stockhausen's work extensively and learned about spatial music, electronic composition, and extended techniques that pushed beyond traditional instrumental approaches. Stockhausen's pieces demonstrated how electronic music could be emotionally powerful and structurally sophisticated at the same time, not just novel sonic experiments. His concepts about the spatial distribution of sound influenced Zappa's approach to both live performance and recording. Zappa appreciated Stockhausen's willingness to explore new technologies and compositional methods without concern for whether audiences would immediately accept them. Stockhausen proved that avant-garde music could be both intellectually rigorous and sonically thrilling at the same time. What made Stockhausen essential in Zappa's view was his complete reimagining of what music could be using electronic means. He created entirely new vocabularies for composition and performance in the electronic medium. Zappa learned from Stockhausen that innovation required abandoning familiar approaches and embracing new possibilities even when they seemed strange at first. The ranking honors Stockhausen's revolutionary contribution to expanding music's boundaries through technology and radical compositional thinking. Igor Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring changed teenage Frank Zappa's entire understanding of music's possibilities in a single listening experience. The revolutionary 1913 ballet score showed Zappa that music could be aggressive, rhythmically complex, and shocking to audiences. Stravinsky demonstrated that classical music could have the same visceral impact as rock music, affecting listeners on a gut level. His work proved that serious composition could be exciting and even dangerous to audiences, rather than merely pleasant or beautiful. Stravinsky's rhythmic innovations and harmonic boldness influenced Zappa's approach to composition throughout his entire career. The way Stravinsky layered complex polyrhythms and unexpected accents became central to Zappa's own compositional style. Zappa studied Stravinsky's scores obsessively, learning how to create organized chaos that was both wild-sounding and precisely structured. Stravinsky showed that discipline and rebellion weren't opposites, but necessary partners in creating truly innovative music. What made Stravinsky essential was his combination of technical mastery and revolutionary spirit. He respected classical tradition while completely transforming it for the modern era. Zappa learned that innovation required deep knowledge of what came before rather than simply ignorance or rejection of tradition. The high ranking reveals Stravinsky as the model for Zappa's entire artistic approach, showing how to honor tradition while fearlessly breaking new ground. Edgar Varèse composed experimental music featuring unusual rhythms and percussion-heavy orchestration in the early 1900s. Teenage Zappa discovered Varèse's music and found his entire artistic direction instantly transformed by the experience. Varèse showed that rhythm and timbre could be as important as melody and harmony, challenging the traditional hierarchy of musical elements. His approach to organizing sound as material rather than following traditional compositional rules revolutionized Zappa's thinking about what composition could be. Varèse's pieces, like Ionization for Percussion Ensemble, demonstrated that rhythm alone could create powerful musical structures without needing melody at all. His use of sirens and industrial sounds showed Zappa that any sound could be musical material if organized thoughtfully. Zappa studied Varèse's approach to density, texture, and sonic architecture throughout his life, constantly returning to these ideas. Varèse proved that serious composition could incorporate noise and unconventional sounds in meaningful ways, rather than just for shock value. What made Varèse irreplaceable was his complete reimagining of music's fundamental building blocks. He created compositional approaches based on sound masses and densities rather than traditional melodic and harmonic structures. Zappa learned from Varèse that composition meant organizing any sounds imaginable into coherent structures, not just working with conventional musical notes. The top 5 ranking acknowledges Varèse as absolutely fundamental to everything innovative about Zappa's compositional approach and sonic thinking. Johnny Guitar Watson was a rhythm and blues guitarist with a distinctive, aggressive tone and innovative style that caught young Zappa's attention. Watson's work in the 1950s showed Zappa that guitar could be both funky and experimental simultaneously, not one or the other. Watson's approach to rhythm guitar and his use of effects pedals influenced Zappa's own guitar playing significantly. He proved that blues-based music could be forward-thinking and innovative rather than simply traditional. Watson's albums combined blues, funk, and early rock in ways that transcended simple genre categories, creating something unique. His guitar tone was distinctive, and his rhythmic approach was sophisticated beyond typical blues playing. Zappa appreciated how Watson brought jazz sophistication to blues and rhythm and blues contexts, elevating the music. Watson's work showed that Black American music was constantly evolving and innovating, not static or backward-looking. Anton Webern was a student of Arnold Schoenberg who refined 12-tone serial composition techniques with mathematical precision. His sparse mathematical approach to music showed Zappa that extreme precision could create emotional power rather than cold academic exercises. Webern's brief, concentrated compositions demonstrated that every single note could carry maximum meaning when placed carefully. His approach to serialism influenced Zappa's understanding of compositional structure and organization at a fundamental level. Webern's pieces were incredibly compressed, with entire compositions lasting just minutes, yet containing profound ideas packed into every moment. His use of silence and space between notes taught Zappa about the importance of what's not played, not just what is played. Webern's rigorous approach to 12-tone technique showed that strict systems could produce beautiful and expressive music, rather than mechanical-sounding results. His precision and economy of means influenced Zappa's own compositional discipline throughout his career. What made Webern essential in Zappa's view was his demonstration that mathematical organization and emotional expression weren't contradictory goals. His serial works were both intellectually rigorous and strangely beautiful at the same time. Zappa learned from Webern that discipline and structure were tools for creating powerful music, not limitations on creativity. The top 3 ranking shows Webern's profound influence on Zappa's understanding of composition as organized sound requiring both systematic thinking and inspiration. Charles Ives composed experimental music that combined American folk melodies with avant-garde techniques in the early 1900s, creating a uniquely American experimental voice. His approach of mixing vernacular music with sophisticated composition became a model for Zappa's entire career trajectory. Ives showed that popular American music could be the foundation for serious experimental composition rather than something to be left behind. Ives's pieces layered different musical materials simultaneously, creating complex collages of American music life that captured the country's diversity. His use of quotation, multiple simultaneous musical streams, and rhythmic complexity influenced Zappa's compositional approach profoundly. Ives demonstrated that American composers could create genuinely original music by embracing their native musical traditions rather than imitating European models. His fearless experimentation inspired Zappa's own boundary-breaking work and gave him permission to mix high and low culture freely. Edgar Varese holds the #1 position on Zappa's list because he meant more to Frank Zappa than any other musician who ever lived. When teenage Zappa heard Varese's experimental compositions, his entire life direction changed instantly and permanently. Varese's radical approach to rhythm, percussion, and electronic sounds became Zappa's ultimate musical foundation and guiding philosophy for everything he would create. Everything innovative about Zappa's music traces back to lessons learned from studying Varese obsessively over many years. Varese showed Zappa that music could be organized around timbre, density, and rhythm rather than traditional melody and harmony as primary elements. His unexpected combination of sounds set Zappa on a path to question every rule of music. Zappa freely used Varese's ideas of organizing sounds into density structures and recreation of sounds. Zappa created his own version of what Varese had demonstrated, inspiring him to overcome the limitations of traditional guitar playing techniques.
His concept of sound masses moving through musical space revolutionized Zappa's thinking about composition entirely, giving him a new framework for understanding how music works. Zappa spent his entire career applying Varese's principles to rock music, bringing experimental composition to popular audiences who might never listen to classical avant-garde music. Varese's influence appears everywhere in Zappa's rhythmic complexity, his approach to orchestration, and his use of electronic sounds throughout his recordings. Varese created new ways of thinking about musical organization that liberated composers from traditional constraints that had limited their options for centuries. Zappa recognized that his own innovations built directly on Varese's pioneering work from decades earlier, acknowledging his debt openly. The #1 ranking represents Zappa's acknowledgement that Varese gave him the conceptual tools for everything he accomplished throughout his revolutionary career. Placing Varese first shows rare humility and deep gratitude to the composer who made Zappa's revolutionary career possible. Without Varese's groundbreaking work, Zappa might never have found his unique voice or realized that the kind of music he imagined was actually possible to create. These 10 musicians represent the diverse influences that shaped Frank Zappa's revolutionary approach to music. From classical pioneers like Stravinsky and Webern to Johnny Guitar Watson, from electronic experimentalists like Stockhausen to avant-garde composers like Varese and Ives, each artist contributed essential elements to Zappa's musical vocabulary. The list reveals that Zappa's innovations didn't emerge from nowhere, but built on a deep foundation of musical knowledge spanning multiple genres and eras. His willingness to learn from such diverse sources and synthesize them into something entirely his own made him one of rock music's most important and influential figures. The experimental pioneers on this list represent composition's true revolutionary spirit, showing that innovation requires both knowledge of tradition and courage to break new ground.